At the foot of the imposing Wuyi Mountains where Fujian and Jiangxi meet, a stream of abundant waters which emanates from Mount Wangang, the highest peak in eastern China, winds through mountains for over 50 kilometers. Here, the river bends 9 times amid the green hills and beautiful scenery to become the famous Zhu stream. Heading upstream, you find yourself in an oasis of tranquility. More than 8 centuries ago, Zhu Xi wrote his enduring work, the Wuyi Boating Song, the earliest group of poems that present an overall picture of Zhu stream beneath the Wuyi Mountains. It is the 6th poem that best represents his concern for people and his pursuit of high principles. Just like these poems, in the years following the Southern Song dynasty, the philosophy of Neo-Confucianism established here spread beyond the Wuyi Mountains to become one of the dazzling glories of Chinese civilization. Wu Baoyuan, a well-known craftsman, is the guardian of stone steles in the Wuyi Mountains. For years, he's been collecting portrayals and calligraphic writings concerning Zhu Xi. He intends to compile them into a book.
现在呢，我们这个百度呢收的关于朱熹这个画像呢非常多，其中里面呢有一部分呢是伪画像。现在呢就是晋欧的那个博物馆里面有一个这个画像呢，朱子画像呢是真的，我一定要去把它踏上，这个是非常经典。
Today, Wu Baoyuan will leave for neighbouring Jian'ou city to make a rubbing.
这个碑呢，在朱熹的后代家里发现，但是这个碑呢有它的落款。
朱子的画像呢，其实在历代有很多流传的画像，基本上8、9不离十。朱子的画像，我把它分成这样几种：一种是写实的，一种是写意的，第3种呢是一种夸张的3种像。写实的画像呢，就是以朱子的自画像为主。朱子是个画家，他自己对镜写真，就自己对着一面镜子、铜镜。 或者一盆水给自己画了一个像，所有的画像大概都离不开这幅像，包括后世出现很多的像，写实的都是以朱子的这个像为准的。第2种呢是写意的像，就是以台湾故宫博物院的所收藏的那幅很像孔子的那幅像。朱子在中国的历史上，他就是第2个孔子，但是他把他的精神画出来。第3种夸张的。 很多夸张的像呢，主要出现在哪里呢？出现在我们的家谱、族谱中间，把它画成了像个帝王一样的，这也是民间对朱子的一种崇拜。
In the first lunar month of the year 1190, 60-year-old Zhu Xi looked in a mirror and painted a self-portrait. Looking back at ups and downs in his official career and his unremitting pursuit of knowledge, Zhu Xi must have been overwhelmed with mixed feelings. He wrote down the inscription as a reminder. At that time, Emperor Guangzong was new to the throne, and the court echoed with calls for the revival of Neo-Confucianism. On the recommendation of the then Chancellor Liu Zhang, Zhu Xi joined the bureaucracy again, this time as the governor of Zhangzhou.
请他出来。 都是以他的私人目的的，他要把朱熹这个请出来，撑门面。 号令天下来，我朱熹呢。但是呢，朱熹到漳州去，他主要的一个就是什么？要增境界。这个增境界呢，打击到了刘桢头上了。
In the Song dynasty, Zhongshan Park was the seat of local government in Zhangzhou, and the nearby ancient streets with the front courtyard. It was from here that Zhu Xi issued the land edicts that shocked the local gentry. It was beyond Zhu's expectation that the veiled resistance to his policy came from Liu Zhang, the man who had recommended him to Zhangzhou in the first place.
当时的话呢，豪强地主啊，挂着了很多土地，就土地的话呢，跟豪强地主是兼并去了，但是呢，税收还是在农民身上。朱熹呢，一定要把丈量和登记土地，这个土地究竟是谁有的？那么就是说，你谁有的话，应该在谁的名下？过去呢是乱了，就是说兼并以后的话呢，土地是给兼并去了，就是这个名义还在这个农民身上，所以话呢，正境界就土地啊重新丈量，然后的话呢，就减少农民的负担。
朱熹呢，他提出这个漳州要行境界，遭到了漳州、泉州的那些地方豪强大族的反对，是吧？这些地方豪强大族呢，都在朝廷与靠山，其中一个最大的靠山就是刘桢，他叫一个漳州的一个进士啊，联名上章给朝廷，说是行境界，会骚扰老百姓，会引发农民起义。那刘桢一拿到这个上章了，很高兴，马上好，漳州不行境界。
Frustrated by the government edict, Zhu Xi set his sights on education and customs. With his disciples, he set up Bai Yuanyan Academy in the suburbs and spent 2 days out of every 10 days on lectures at the local government-established institution. A train of documents titled On Culture and Customs were also published, advising the public to focus on their own business and get along with each other. For more than 8 centuries, stories of Zhu Xi transforming outdated social customs have circulated in Zhangzhou. Many of the norms that Zhu Xi laid down have come to be blended into the daily fabric of life in southern Fujian. That's largely because Chen Chuan, one of Zhu Xi's disciples in Zhangzhou, made these etiquettes known to every household. Daimei village is home to the descendants of Chen Chuan. The etiquettes and norms he promoted evolved into local rules that are strictly observed here to this day. Despite many renovations and additions, houses in the village still follow the pattern they had when they were first built during the Ming Dynasty.
所以我们是陈纯的后裔，是朱子理学在漳州的重要的传人，于是立下了2条族规。第1条，哪家致富要建房子，由村族里统一规划，后代子孙呢不能改变格局。第2条族规，所有的房子建筑高度都不能超过后池塘。为什么城市主乡要订立这条族规？主要是要使城市的村民呢，就是比较和谐相处。 让他们相亲相爱，才不会说互相攀比。
Today, Wu Baoyuan has come all the way from Wuyi City to the Water Clouds Pavilion on Gushan Mountain in Fuzhou. It's said that the pavilion keeps a full-length carved portrait of Zhu Xi that dates back to the Qing dynasty. Wu Baoyuan finds it strikingly similar to its counterpart in the Zhu Xi temple in Jian'ou. Getting a piece of paper ready and evenly applying cinnabar, Wu Baoyuan holds his breath and completes the rubbing in a single stretch. Zhu Xi has an indissoluble bond with Fuzhou, largely because of Zhao Ruyu, a high-ranking official in the southern Song dynasty. The rock near the pavilion is inscribed with the words of 2 celebrities. In the year 1187, Zhu Xi came to visit his friend Zhao Ruyu in Fuzhou. Unfortunately, he wasn't there. Upset, Zhu Xi had some words carved on the rock. And 3 years later, when Zhao once again took office in Fuzhou, he was moved by the inscription and wrote a poem in return. The tale of these two Song Dynasty literati has since entered into legend.
朱子他做那个武夷精舍的时候，就被人诬陷，然后钱财也不够。赵宇呢，拿着他自己的俸禄去支持朱子建精舍。朱子去在全国推行社窗。当时呢，赵宇他就用自己的影响在福州推社窗，应该来说对朱子都是直接的支持。所以朱子在有些诗词里面还在怀念他。他有一次跟弟子一起登到那个鼓山顶上的时候，写的那个“天风海涛”这个字，实际上来自谁呢？就是赵尔虞一首诗里面的四个字。
During his 2 stints as governor of Fujian, Zhao Ruyu took Zhu Xi's advice in implementing salt regulations and household registration. He also had West Lake dug in Fuzhou. In the year 1183, Zhu Xi embarked on a nationwide lecture tour. One of his stops was Fuzhou. In the early winter, Zhu and Zhao Ruyu climbed Wushi Mountain. There they expressed their profound feelings, chanting verses as they appreciated the distant Minjiang River.
当时呢，这个朝廷呢，他是诸侯派占了上风，反道学派的人物当了宰相，全国呢道学是遭到禁的，但是呢，赵若愚在福建当安抚使，福建的理学道学得到发展。
Towards the end of summer in the year 1194, Zhu Xi, the then administrator of Tanzhou in Hunan province, was summoned to the capital Lin'an. On his way east, he stopped in Xinzhou, Jiangxi. There were 2 possible roads lying ahead of the 65-year-old. One was to meet Emperor Ningzong in Lin'an and serve for the first and only time in his life in the court as the counselor and tutor of the new emperor. The other was to head south to the Wuyi Mountains, where he could live the life of a neo-Confucian hermit. Zhu Xi was undecided. Should he obey the emperor's order or not? A month earlier, Emperor Ningzong had issued an imperial edict to recommission Zhu Xi, one that was repeatedly reiterated by the court. Behind the eagerness of the emperor was the recommendation of Zhao Ruyu and the advice from imperial ministers that the new emperor had to rely on Zhu Xi to rule over the country.
朱熹一生就是唯一的一次入潮州关，就是在绍兴5年入潮州这个试讲，相当于皇帝的老师了，精讲儒家的经书啊。
At that time, his longtime friend Zhao Ruyu had just been appointed chancellor. A new imperial court in which he could realize his aspirations seemed to be beckoning to Zhu Xi. But on his way eastwards, Zhu kept hearing reports that the new emperor was doting upon courtier Han Tuozhou. This was highly disconcerting news.
韩拓胄这个人当然比较特别了，他又是一个外戚，对吧？而且呢，他又是一个近臣，就是做那些给皇帝通禁啊什么这样的一些事务的。但是实际上呢，在他的身边也有一个他的支持集团，或者是有一个他所利用的这样的一个官僚集团。那么这样的一个官僚集团呢，其实他们长期以来和这个士大夫或者是清流的道学的这样的一个集团呢，彼此之间呢，在政治眼光上 在这个立场上是有分野的。
For 5 or 6 days in Xinzhou, Zhu Xi, afraid of becoming a pawn in someone else's game, was racked by soul-searching. In the end, he decided that all he could do was just try his best. He decided to continue on his way to Lin'an and meet the new emperor.
宋宁宗是一个标标准准的伪徒、伪学。他开头做出个样子，说是我是心理学的啊。他一上来当皇帝，第一句是要把朱熹请进来，好像他来当皇帝啊，天下要有一片新气象了，叫朝廷更化了，要这个朱熹啊对他开始治国的一些良方。
After meeting the modest Emperor Ningzong in Lin'an, Zhu Xi felt a strong sense of purpose. He was determined to have an influence on the new emperor by being his teacher. That way, he could put and train new policies that would enrich the people and enhance military strength. The end purpose was to restore the regime in the Central Plains. Yet Zhu Xi never expected that the moment he entered the palace, he would be drawn into perilous partisan conflicts between Han Tuozhou and Zhao Ruyu.
皇帝本来接受的程度就有限，理解的程度也有限。你这个滔滔不绝的说，其实他不太能够听得进去，而说的太多的时候呢，他可能就会觉得厌烦。那个时候呢，像朱熹他们这些人呢，当然也有他们缺乏政治经验的这一面。 所以在这个朝政这样一种很复杂的斗争里边，他们的这个失势，在那个时候其实是能够看得出来的，就这个趋势是很明显的。
In his 7th lecture 46 days later, Zhu Xi made outright criticism of Zhao Kuo, who bristled with anger and no more put on modesty. Zhu Xi left the palace, the new emperor immediately ordered to oust Zhu Xi. On the 26th day of the 10th lunar month of the year 1194, Zhu Xi left Lin'an despairing of saving the imperial court. A brutal reality was unfolding before him. The situation for the southern Song regime was hopeless, no matter how hard he tried to save it. Having no chance to enlighten the emperor, Zhu Xi realized that he would have to take refuge in Neo-Confucianism. Parting from worldly matters, I will become a recluse in Changzhou. This statement reflects the inner intention of 65-year-old Zhu Xi. 1 month later, he built Changzhou Academy, his last great academic project in Kaoting, Jianyang, which lies at the south foot of the Wuyi Mountains. From then on, he retreated from the world to seek inner peace and promote Neo-Confucianism. At the same time, the conflict between Han Tuozhou and Zhao Ruyu, the two most influential figures, was hotting up. Before long, Han Tuozhou instigated Emperor Ningzong to send Zhao Ruyu into exile. On his way westwards to Hunan, the humiliated Zhao Ruyu succumbed to illness and died at Hangzhou, Hunan. Soon, Zhu Xi, who had always been the first to attack courtiers, became the next target of Han Tuozhou. In the second lunar month of the year 1196, the clique headed by Han Tuozhou started to denounce Zhu Xi's teachings as false and deceptive, and petitioned the emperor to destroy Zhu Xi's books, including collected commentaries on the 4 books. A large-scale anti-Neo-Confucianism campaign swept the country.
这些道学派的思想要禁绝传播，道学派的著作要销毁，参加科举考试都要在这个科举考试的这个申请书啊， 语一栏要写我不信道学，你不写的话你就不能参加了。那么实际上的话呢，它是这个政治的斗争，也包含了一个文化上的斗争。
In a memorial to the emperor, investigating censor Shen Jizhu stated 6 reasons to impeach Zhu Xi. Zhu Xi had, he alleged, fed his mother with mouldy rice and conspired with Zhao Ruyu in an attempted coup. Shen Jizhu even claims that the line, "unless there is another world," from Zhu Xi's popular Wuyi boating song, implied discontent with the royal family and his intention to establish a new regime. Before long, Zhu Xi was dismissed.
别有天这句话呢，它所表达的是，武夷山，它是人间的仙境，它的美景是世间所少有的。但是，对朱子的批判者，就用这种别有天认为是他想改朝换代，这纯粹是一种文字狱。
这个审计署的那个弹劾的奏章啊，这个材料啊，什么东西都是吴宏提供给他。这个吴宏为什么对朱熹那么恼火呢？就他当年可能朱熹，他觉得朱熹轻慢过他，羞辱过他。据说啊，这个材料上就好像他当年呢曾经也到山里面去跟朱熹读书的。那么朱熹呢，反正对所有的人是一视同仁的。 就是吃一般的杂粮，对不对？那么吴宏呢就说，山里面的弄个鸡吃嘛，总是有的。这个说朱熹太小气。当初呢就是陷入到这种党派之争了，实际上就是要罗织罪名了，那就是无所不用其极。
Zhu Xi's chief disciple, Cai Yuanding, was also wrongly accused and banished to Daozhou in Hunan, before he'd even had a chance to say goodbye to his family. Hearing the news, Zhu Xi, though in poor health, led other disciples from Kaotiang Academy to Mayang River, where Cai Yuanding would pass.
很早，朱子就在那等蔡元定的船来。蔡元定的船被贬途中，那个船来了。 蔡元定下船，师徒俩携手就到旁边的寺庙里，坐下，抓紧时间就谈《周易》参通气理的问题，连寒暄都没有，抓紧时间，没时间。
A year later, Cai Yuanding died in Hunan. Even though the master Confucian Zhu Xi had fallen into disrepute and had been parted from his disciple, and Tuozhou was still unsatisfied. Soon, a list of 59 supporters of the false teachings was released, with the approval of Emperor Ningzong. In addition to Zhu Xi, the list included mostly senior officials like the late Chancellor Zhao Ruyu, former Associate Chancellor Liu Jiang, and Prince Teacher Zhao Bida. Behind the list was the intention to eliminate Neo-Confucianism root and branch. But meanwhile, at the center of the storm, Zhu Xi remained calm and steadfast in his commitment to enlightening people by writing books and lecturing.
朱熹有些学生就不敢去上学了啊，甚至还有些人就佯装发狂，那就希望跟朱熹有所切割。那有人就劝朱熹说：“你要不要就遣散学徒啊？就是学生就让他们回去吧啊，不要再讲学了啊。”文献里面记载是朱熹笑而不答啊。
When the news came that someone proposed killing the head of a so-called false school, Zhu Xi laughed it off. He wasn't afraid of misfortune or death.
当时的形势呢非常的严峻，甚至于有人上书说是要杀朱子来谢天下，但是朱子呢把这些都看透了， 他照样的这个研究学问，照样的给学生讲课。
During the proscriptions of the Qingyuan era, Zhu Xi, accompanied by his disciples, traveled to Fuzhou, Ningde, and even southern Zhejiang to escape the bitter partisan wrangle. Wherever he went, he would be invited to give lectures to enlighten people with his Neo-Confucianism and philosophy. But Zhu Xi was now in his 70s, and the long period of touring and lecturing around the country had begun to take its toll. When disease cost him the sight of his left eye, Zhu Xi began to sense that his last days were fast approaching. During the proscriptions of the Qingyuan era, Zhu Xi encouraged his students to throw themselves into research at Kaotian, writing and compiling an array of masterpieces. The classic Collected Annotations on the Chuzi is one of them.
他对《离骚》进行了记注。为什么这个时候他花了很大的力气要做《离骚》呢？其实跟他当年的心境是有关的。他的那个学生蔡元定被流放，赵汝愚后来也被迫害致死。他好多话不能说嘛，对吧？但是他用这种方式来表明他对为了国家啊，为了人民一片忠心的对这种人的一种崇敬。
In the first lunar months of the year 1198, Zhu Xi sent a long letter to his student and son-in-law Wang Gan, who was in mourning in Fuzhou. In the letter, Zhu Xi expressed his deep concern for the future of Neo-Confucianism. Accompanying the letter was a set of sheni and works of Zhu Xi. The message was clear. Zhu Xi wanted Wang Gan to carry on his legacy. On the 6th day of the 3rd lunar month of the year 1200, a frail Zhu Xi for the last time modified the numbers in the great learning, sincerity and collected annotations on the Chuzi. In the afternoon, his condition worsened. 2 days later, Zhu Xi, on his deathbed, left a personal letter to Wang Gan saying, "I have no regrets, because you will carry on my legacy." The next day marked the demise of the master Confucian. Feeling his hat was askew, Zhu Xi raised his eyes to signal others to adjust it for him. A little later, at the age of 71, he breathed his last. On the 20th day of the 11th lunar month in the year 1200, Zhu Xi was buried in Dalin Valley at the foot of Jiufeng Mountain in Jianyang, alongside his wife Liu Qingsi, who had died 24 years earlier. Nearly 1,000 people paid their last respects at his funeral.
说明什么呢？这说明朱子的思想和学说在当时深入人心，朱子的为人也是为大家所敬重，老百姓的心中有一根尺量得很清楚。
一个人的伟大不在于他在世期间，而是他过世、辞世以后的影响力。朱熹的影响力很大。
The two great poets, Lu You and Qin Qiji, mourned over the death of their old friend. Lu You wrote, "My tears are like the Yangtze River that pours into the East China Sea, and I wish to die 100 times to bring you back." Qin Qiji wrote, "Your name will be remembered for countless generations. Your legacy will be carried on forever."
所以朱熹在文教上 在儒家的礼乐文化教化，在文教上，他的功劳啊，媲美孔子，是孔子以后第一人了。没有哪一个理学家，哪一个学问家，在这个文教、道德修养、文教是比得上朱熹的。
6 years after he passed away, Zhu Xi was officially rehabilitated by the court. Granted the posthumous title of Wen, he became known as Zhu Wengong. He was also titled Xin Guogong and Wei Guogong. In the year 1241, Emperor Li Zong ordered that Zhu Xi should be worshipped in Confucian temples. In the year 1335, Togon Temur ordered the building of Zhu Xi temples and that his major works be included in the imperial examination. In the Ming Dynasty, the complete collection of 4 books and 5 classics, with a preface from Emperor Yongle, was made one of the reference books for the imperial examination. In 1712, the imperial court agreed to include Zhu Xi among the 10 sages worshipped at Confucian temples. Emperor Kangxi wrote the prefaces for the complete books of Zhu Xi and Essentials of Temperament and Theories, which were then spread across the country. Long after his death, Zhu Xi became the most highly regarded Confucian, second only to Confucius himself. In the year 1289, 89 years after Zhu Xi passed away, Ambassador An Yang of the Goryeo dynasty visited the great capital of the Yuan dynasty, today's Beijing, and brought back home works such as collected commentaries on the 4 books and classified conversations of Zhu Xi, as well as portraits of Zhu Xi. He was then recognized as a leading Confucian scholar on the Korean peninsula.
헌파유경 덕미심, 공경이 잡았다는 거예요. 유경을, 주문공의 오곡을 잡아보니 덕미함이, 맛을 얻음이 깊다. 아주 참 정말 글이 가지고 있는 의미가 깊다.
Zhu Xi's philosophies and theories became incredibly widely known across the Korean peninsula in the following 700 years. A tribute to Wuyi boating song by Master Zhu was made by Yi Yeonjuk, a famous philosopher back then, after he had studied Zhu Xi's works.
실천적인 학풍인 소학 중심의 학문이었는데 그것을 집에 회제 선조 때 오면서 대학 중심으로 학문의 관심을 옮깁니다. 그렇게 옮기게 된 계기는 집에 선조께서 일찍부터 주자의 문집도 읽어보고 주자의 은행록도 읽어보고 주자의 학설에 아주 대단한 동의를 합니다. 그 동의의 결과물이 무극태극 논변이란 글로 보여지고 있고요. 예, 그렇게 해서 이제 이후에 노년에 대학 장구 보유라는 책을 직접 저술을 하십니다. 그 책을 통해서 이 조선의 학자들의 학문적 관심을 대학으로 옮기는 계기를 마련한 분입니다.
Thanks to scholars like Yi Yeonjuk, Zhu Xi's philosophy was made a state doctrine in Korea. A lifelong admirer of Zhu Xi, Yi Yeonjuk even named the stream before his Oksan Siawon Confucian Academy as Nine-Bend Stream. Zhu Xi's poem Wuyi Boating Song was the love of his life.
그래서 우리나라 그 서원이 많이 있는데 그 서원에 있는 각각 그 지방에는 또 이런 그 구곡을 만들어서 학문을 그 연구하는데 같이 이렇게 이용을 했는데 한국에는 이런 구곡이 한 30여 개가 현재 그 남아 있습니다.
Yi Huang, who was born shortly after Yi Yeonjuk, was the most renowned inheritor of Zhu Xi's philosophy in Korea. At the age of 50, Yi Huang resigned from office and returned to his hometown, Andong, to live a reclusive life. He built Dosan Siawon by the creek at the foot of Mount Dosan.
매일같이 이곳에서 공부하는 유생들에게, 선비들에게 백록동 원규도를 보고 그 것을 익히도록 그렇게 하셨습니다. 백록 원교도는 도산서뿐만 아니라 전국의 서원들의 아마 원교 모델이 되지 않았나 생각을 합니다.
During his retreat in Dosan, Yi Huang nurtured countless disciples that excelled in Zhu Xi's philosophy and formed the significant Retreating Creek School. Like Yi Injuk, Yi Huang named where the academy sat as Dosan Nine-Bend. For scholars on the Korean peninsula, the Nine-Bend stream in the Wuyi Mountains represents the ideal of the Confucian world. Every Monday morning, teachers and students at Kojokan High School in Okayama recite the precepts of the White Deer Grotto Academy. It's a tradition that's lasted for more than 160 years.
1853年に創立しました工場館は中国の四書五経の中にあります大学の一節一家仁なれば一国仁に起こり一家上なれば一国上に起こるという説の中の上の精神を起こすこの工場を取って工場館と名前がつきました。それを意味は分からなくても毎日斉唱することで体の中心の中魂にこの言葉が刻まれてそして卒業後もこの意味を実生活の中で照らし合わせながら生きていくということを実感するそんな深い
In the first half of the 13th century, shortly after Zhu Xi's death, his works were brought to Japan by monks who had studied in China.
日本に円二というお坊さんがいます。彼は中国に留学して日本に帰ってくるのですが、その禅宗の勉強に合わせて朱子学の書物を持ち帰ってきています。なぜわかるかというと、彼が中国から持ち帰ってきた書物の目録が現在も残っているからです。その書物自体は現在なくなってしまったのでわからないのですけれども、目録があるので彼が何を持ち帰ったかがわかります。その中に朱子学の書物がかなり含まれています。
In the year 1632, Hayashi Razan, a prized disciple of the Japanese Neo-Confucianism pioneer Fujiwara Seika, built a temple in Ueno, Tokyo. Inside the temple hang the portraits of 21 Chinese Confucian sages, including Confucius and Zhu Xi. Throughout his life, Hayashi Razan lectured on Zhu Xi's philosophy. The temple was then rebuilt and named Yushima Seido, which housed the best government-supported school during the Tokugawa period. Thanks to the pioneering efforts of the Tokugawa shogunate, similar schools flourished right across Japan. Despite different sizes and courses, they shared one thing in common: the 4 books and part of the 5 classics commentary by Zhu Xi were compulsory. Zhu Xi's philosophy flourished in Japan for over 260 years.
で特に朱子の書いた「史書史注」っていう有名な論語と孟子と大学の地と中庸の注釈書があります。宋州自注という。あれはおそらく最も日本で読まれた本の一つだと言われてるんです。だいたい古い家に行きますとですね、蔵の中に未整理の古い ご先祖の本があるっていうので、開けてみれば大抵朱子のそういう本はあるのが普通です。だから完全な基礎教養なんです。
江戸時代の前は日本は戦国時代でみんながこう戦ってる、戦争している時代に朱子学が入ってきて、要するに朝鮮から言わせると日本人は野蛮人から文化人になった。その元になったのが朱子学であることは間違いないですね。
理学形成之后，是吧？它的这个影响啊，像元明清这个经过这元明清3代啊，这个朱熹的科学思想，它是一个正统的地位啊，正统地位啊。那么这个在这个时期的话，理学这个思想就传播到通过韩国、通过日本啊，传播到这个东亚一带啊，也包括这个像越南等等。这个东亚文化应该说在近代之前都是受到朱熹的影响的。
In the year 1595, Matteo Ricci, an Italian Jesuit priest, sent back to Italy the collected commentaries on the 4 books. He had no idea that this move would make him one of the first Western missionaries to translate Zhu Xi's classic Neo-Confucianism works. In the second half of the 17th century, some of Zhu Xi's Neo-Confucian ideas were introduced to Germany by missionaries Johann Adam Schell von Bell and Ferdinand Verbiest. Through them, the famous German philosophers like Leibniz and Kant were introduced to Zhu Xi's philosophy.
Das ist eine Zeit, in der auch Europa sich sehr stark fortentwickelt hat, die Zeit der Aufklärung. Und dort wurden diese Texte auch rezipiert. Man hat zwar in Europa versucht, wie auch in China in der Regel, den echten Konfuzius auch bei den Kritikern Zhu Xis, die es damals in Europa gegeben hat, können wir feststellen, dass auch sie die zhuchische Auslegung der Klassiker bevorzugen, sodass der Einfluss auf jeden Fall gegeben ist. Und in späterer Zeit, dann ab dem 19. Jahrhundert und im frühen 20. Jahrhundert, ist dann die Sinologie in Europa aufgeblüht und es gab einen ganz neuen Zugang zu Zhu Xi. Man hat Zhu Xi direkt als Denker verstanden, als Philosophen.
莱布尼茨也是对朱熹的有所了解，而且也做过介绍。莱布尼茨是赞成的那个朱熹的思想理学，可能是孔子以后呢，中国第2个思想家，也是第1个，对我来说是第1个哲学家，中国的第1个哲学家。
Maybe the Oriental Confucian wisdom represented by Neo-Confucianism put Zhu Xi center stage during the Age of Enlightenment in France in the 18th century. Voltaire, the standard-bearer of the Enlightenment, learned Oriental ethics from Zhu Xi's books. He argued that ethics is a top priority, and he praised Zhu Xi's theories about educating people by virtue. In the famous encyclopedia, Diderot applauded that China's Confucianism enables one to rule the country through reason and truth. French thinkers like Voltaire and Diderot also advocated Zhu Xi's people-first ideas and universal education to end ignorance and autocracy. In the 21st century, the splendid traditional culture of China is glowing with new vitality. Commemorative activities and academic research on Zhu Xi culture are becoming popular across the globe. We are learning about Zhu Xi's concern for society, his spirit of exploring the essence of things, and his ideology of serving people, seeking peace and prosperity. His ideas other focus of attention.
把中国的儒学注入了新的活力，使它获得了新的生命。这是朱子对中国文化的一个巨大的贡献。所以现在我觉得朱子当年的做法值得我们来借鉴，不能把我们的传统割断，割断传统就是割断了自己的血脉，我们不能割断。新的东西要在旧的东西上面才能发展，所以我们把我们的传统要继续下来。
一个就是孔子，是吧？一个就是朱熹，啊，孔子啊，把他之前1000多年、2000年的思想做了传承发展，啊，在他之后就是朱熹，是吧？对这个思想做对整个中华文明的这个重要的核心价值观和中华文化的那个主导的那个学术体系，是吧？这个结合时代的需求，也吸收了外来的文化，是吧？做了传承创新，这个使得我们后来的这个中华文化才能够延续到今天。
The two great thinkers are Confucius in the Eastern Zhou dynasty and Zhu Xi in the Southern Song dynasty. The ancient Chinese culture is epitomized by Mount Tai and the Wuyi Mountains. These lines from a poem by Cai Xiangci, a famous historian and expert on Chinese intellectual history, reveal the development of China's ancient civilization. Mount Tai is crowned with eternal glory for Confucius. The Wuyi Mountains have gained global fame for Zhu Xi. These two giants provide the motive force in the great river of thought that has nurtured Chinese civilization and which carries the Chinese nation unrelentingly forward.